So we're in Perek Mem Beis. Pasuk Tesvav. I want to first comment about this information that the brother supplied to Yosef that he didn't ask for. Pasuk Gimel. So we mentioned last time that some of us say they offer that they have two more brothers. And later, they recount to Yaakov, they say, well, Yaakov asked the kasha, why do you tell him something he didn't ask you for? Why do you offer that information? They say, we didn't offer it, he asked us. So some of us would say that indeed he asked them, and if you want to understand why they offered that information, you have to look later, and you learn that he asked for it. And it's a midrash of the Torah, because sometimes the Torah gives you information when it has the same story repeated, it gives you information in other places, they don't know there. Other versions say that there's a reason why they offered it to support their story, or they're offering information that could be used to verify the truth of the narrative, fine. But the fact is later, they said that he asked. So I just want to point out one thing, and this is something we have to explore further, but I just need to point it out. If you look at the beginning of Vayigash, where Yehuda recounts the conversation, it's a completely different flavor than the way it's described in Miketz. Yehuda tells him, you asked us about our family, and we told you, and he said, bring him down. Yehuda makes no mention of the accusation that they were on him. So if you would just read Miketz, it says over there, you asked us about, we have any more family. You asked about our father too.
In Vayigash,
I'm sorry. And then furthermore, in Vayigash it says, that you, Yosef, told us, bring him down. Vasima Eini Olav. And the Ben Ezra points out that always Vasima Eini Olav means I'll take care of him. Another place in Tanakh where we have Vasim Ayin Olav, it means I'll attempt him, I'll take care of him. So, oh yeah, little brother, I want to see him, I want to meet him, I want to take care of him. As if he's expressing some love for Binyamin, interested in seeing Binyamin. I'm excited, I want to meet him. Okay, so that's the flavor you get in Vayigash. Nothing about the fact that we were accused of being spies and we were almost going to be killed if we didn't prove ourselves. And in that story it goes, you asked us a question. So there seems to be two different takes on the story. And then we have to think about what's the point of that. Ramban talks about this and others. I'm just pointing out I'm not the first one to notice this. The Ramban basically says, like, Yehuda's making it into a nice story because he's trying to make it sound better for the king, whatever. So the point is that the Shal Anu Ish appears in that narrative, and therefore we have to think about whether we're supposed to read it back into actually what happened, or this idealized version of what happened. And
even then, you can argue that he tells Yaakov something different than exactly what happened because he had a motivation. He can't really explain it in the moment, so he says, "Yeah, he asked us."
Well, he doesn't want to say that they will have threat of death, perhaps.
Right.
He's going to scare him, right?
He don't want to scare him. But to tell
He's
Yosef...
going to kill all of us if we don't bring Binyamin.
Right, but to tell Yosef...
He's probably killed children by now, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. To tell Yosef...
Not pleasant.
You asked this question when he didn't.
Right.
That wouldn't be very practical.
Right. I mean, unless it's some sort of like... some sort of diplomacy going on that Yosef himself is supposed to recognize. Yeah, 100%. But that seems to be a key to understanding this difference here, that there is and perhaps the story could read as if Yosef asked the question, but maybe he didn't. Okay, just being aware. Okay, Pasuk Tezvav. V'zois tibachenu chayif ar'oyim teitzbu mizeh ki im b'reachichem ha'kotatenu. So the subject becomes Yosef swearing that they can't leave. They cannot leave Mitzrayim until their little brother enters Mitzrayim. So the subject becomes whether they can leave Mitzrayim, which is a very important subject. It's such an important subject. Yosef is the first one to be captured and enslaved in Mitzrayim, and now his brothers are being arrested and locked and refused exit from Mitzrayim, and then eventually Bnei Yisrael are going to experience the same thing. And of course, in the Mizmor that we always keep talking about it, they always keep talking about when Yosef goes out of Mitzrayim, it says So Yosef's exit from Vayetzi Yosef al Eretz Mitzrayim, as we spoke about this in the beginning of the parasha, Yosef sort of became free, released from his imprisonment, but he didn't take the opportunity to leave Mitzrayim fully. And here, the brothers are now facing a similar situation that Yosef was, as Yosef was earlier, and they too are now being put in a mishmar, and they too, as we'll see, are there for shloishes yomim, and on the third day their fate changes for the better, and they get released. Okay, so the subject is Yitzias Mitzrayim. You can read it, right? I mean, essentially. And Yosef is telling them that, okay, you want to leave Mitzrayim, you want to leave, first has to happen is that you all have to come, including your little brother. Okay, so, and the deeper meaning, I think, is, as we've been discussing, the machlokes in Yosef and the brothers is how to relate to Golus, how to relate to the fact that the destiny of an Esau is to go to Golus. Yosef embraces the Golus, and everyone knows that Klal Yisrael is going to Golus. You know, even if you think about it, I mean, Pashat like as a Metzias. We spoke about this a little bit last week. Think about it as a Metzias. This family knows that the grandfather was told that this is what their destiny is. The question is what to do about it. Yosef is very into this. Let's do it. And his brothers, and therefore he has these dreams about that foreshadow leaving Eretz Yisrael and losing the wound and so on and so forth. And then I'm asking, right? That they're anti this Mitzrayim idea, and here he's telling them, they want Yitzias Mitzrayim, and then there's a deeper message here that you're going to leave Mitzrayim, but first you have to all come to Mitzrayim, right? Now, there's also another thing over here, which is that there's a focus on Achich Makata, right? And this parsha ends. Parsha's Mikra is going to end that all he wants is Binyamin to stay behind. He doesn't want Binyamin to die. But the story goes, they said whoever has the Gevira will die, and everyone else will be Avodim. And he says, whoever has the Gevira is going to be my Eved. That's what he wants. He wants Binyamin. So then there's a suggests, and I say suggests because I think it's very murky what Yosef wants over here. Does he want something? But it suggests a possible way of looking at the whole story. We're very used to the idea that there's Yitzchak and Yishmael, Yaakov and Esau, and of course Yishmael's the bad guy, and no one thinks about him, and Esau's the bad guy, no one cares about him except that he's a bad guy. And then we have Yosef and So let's talk about Yosef's story. We have this destiny, this oil called Yadayate Geriyas Rachabar Tzalahem, and Yosef is doing it. Yosef made this into his midah, his anhaga, and he's going to deal with it. And then you have the other brothers who are not stung to the bris of Avraham Avinu, as it were. They're not embracing Golus.
Even though Yaakov is also Mekayim.
Oh, why? How is he Mekayim?
Because he still the land was not, it was the Canaanim, so it was Geriyas Erecha.
About Avinu Moisom, I don't know. Okay, because Abba Me'ashana starts from there, so
sure.
Okay.
That's music.
Fine, right. So that's Mitzvah means even when they're in the land of Canaan. I hear it. Okay.
Everyone
knows that they're going down to Mitzrayim, right? Avod Avinu Moisom, Ba'achlechen Yitzu. There's going to be Yitzia. There'll be a Shu, Heino. There's definitely going to be a Shiva. What? There's definitely
you don't necessarily know it's Mitzrayim, right?
Right, but there's Golus.
Yeah.
Right? There's definitely Golus. Okay. The Golus is an aspect of that, leaving Eretz Canaan. And so Yosef is doing it, and no one else is doing it. So again, I'm just suggesting as a way to read it, that Yosef says, fine, I'm going to do it, you're not. So I'm going to be the chosen people, and you're not. Now let's take this pluk between Yosef and the brothers very seriously. It's not the first time there's a machlokes within this family, between brothers. And this is just continuing the same story. Possibly, till Vayigash Elav Yehuda, and this is Rapper Shran between Yehuda and Yosef, but that's of course jumping a little bit ahead. That's of course where the Drushim start having this whole idea about Yehuda and Yosef reuniting. It's a big deal. Because really, going with the pattern, this family will also have a period. The period will be Yosef will take the destiny of Bnei Yisrael, and everyone else is not. From Yosef's perspective. So from Yosef's perspective, he's the one who's doing the right thing. The Bnei Rachel, that's my point, is that he wants Binyamin, because he wants Binyamin. He's saying, look, I'm going to do this without everyone else, but Binyamin should be with me. That's what he wants. So he's so
because he's thinking Yishmael, but what about Esau?
No, I'm saying everyone else. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda.
I understand that, but he's saying we're not the same. We're not from the same mother, so it doesn't matter. But one.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay, right. That's a good question. Fine.
Just how it switches at the end when it comes to the Nachlios, actually Yehuda takes Binyamin,
right,
and Yis takes the rest.
Very interesting. Right. I mean, Vayigash, right? Yehuda comes to the rescue of Binyamin, right? Okay. Interesting. Right.
No, I'm saying by the
eventually, right? The Malchus, right. Okay. That's another thing. Also, I think we spoke about this a few times. Different nuschayos. Everyone asked why did he send his father. I think that his father was with the brothers, and therefore he's sort of breaking from his father also. I think. Okay, kids, I wouldn't have to. Fine. I want to just jump ahead a little bit now and say a shtickle of medrash maybe about a parsha later that relates to this idea that Yosef is the one who's taking on the galus, and by initiating the galus. Goes like this. Take a look at the beginning of Perek Memvav. So this is when Yaakov comes down to Mitzrayim. He goes to Beersheba, and he tells him not to be afraid. And he tells him in Pasuk Daled, "Anochi eredim from Mitzrayim, v'anochi a'al chodam oloi. Yosef yoshes yodei alenecha." So he tells him not to be afraid because Hashem is going to bring him back from Mitzrayim, and Yosef will put his hand on your eyes. Okay, that's the message. So why should Yaakov not be afraid? Because Hashem will bring him up from Mitzrayim, and Yosef will put his hand on his eye. Now, the fact that Hashem will bring him up from Mitzrayim means that Yaakov is going to be brought back from Mitzrayim. But his children are going to remain in Galus. So it's a very strange message to Yaakov. Yaakov is afraid to go down to Mitzrayim because he's initiating the Galus. That's a Meshchach points at Mars Halaylo. Laila is reflects Galus. So Yaakov is afraid of what he's facing. But not only personally, he's afraid of what he's facing, him and his family. And what's the answer? Don't be afraid because I'm going to bring you up from Mitzrayim, and Yosef is going to put his hand on your eye. So I would suggest, a little bit of a drash, but since we're mentioning this whole thing. Yosef is the one who's initiating the Galus. That was Yosef's role. Yosef's dreams foreshadowed the fact that he's going down to Mitzrayim. And Yosef's dream about the sun and the moon and the stars bowing to him, as we discussed, Yosef dreamt that there's total darkness, because the sun and the moon and the stars bowing is the sun and the moon and the stars setting. So Yosef's dreams about darkness, and that's why it says in Micha that the sun sets on the Nevi'im. That's in reference to the Achei Yosef lost their powers of Nevuah, the sun sets, because Yosef dreamt about darkness, which is Galus. So Yaakov is going down to darkness, going down to Galus. Hashem appears to him in Maris Halayla, and Yaakov is very afraid. Why is he afraid? Because this is not his umnis, Galus. It's Yosef's umnis. And the middle, Yosef went down to Mitzrayim. Yosef is doing it, but why is Yaakov going down to Mitzrayim? So that's what Hashem tells him. You are going to come up from Mitzrayim. Yosef is going to put his hands over your eyes. Let's say that means that when a person dies, the sun closes his eyes. Some people say it means that. So the point is, Yosef is the one who's going to bring the darkness. That you're losing visibility by going down to Mitzrayim, which is Maris Halayla. So Yaakov is afraid of that. And Hashem is telling you, no, you're just going down temporarily. You're going to come back up, and the real Maris Halayla, the real Laila of Golus, is actually going to be initiated by Yosef and not by you. So don't be afraid. So Yaakov is afraid that he's the one who's going to be bringing Golus, and really it's Yosef's job to bring Golus. So back to this pasuk, Yosef is telling them, you are not leaving either. Everyone has to undergo Golus. You're only going to have Geula of leaving Mitzrayim. First you have to all be in Galus, and I like to initiate that. Or, as we said, perhaps Yosef really only wants Binyamin to be with him in this project. Okay. Now, let's look at these psukim. So, pasuk tesvav, bezoisti b'cheinu, chayfar oyim teitzu mizeh. So what happens is in the next four psukim, first Yosef swears by the life of Parah that they won't leave. All of them won't leave unless the little brother comes, and therefore he says, "Shulchu mikem echad v'yikach es achichem v'atem me'aser v'yibachim l'devreichem ha'emes." Send one of you to take your brothers, and you will be locked up, and that way your words will be tested, whether you're saying the truth. Ve'im loy chei fire ki meraglim atem. Vayesek oisav mishmar shloishes yamim. And nothing happens. So that's a question. It's a funny thing. He told him to send someone. And then, and he changes his mind. He has a whole new idea. So, and that is that one of them should stay behind. So that's what many say, mentioned in many of the Farshim, that Yosef swore Chei Paroi L'Sheker, because he swore that they're not going to leave. None of them are going to leave. And then 3 days later he changes his mind. So he didn't fulfill his shvur. And it's very appropriate then that he swore by the life of Pari. As we discussed last week and in previous weeks, swearing by the life of Pari is deifying Pari, because that's you swear by God. No one swears by a king, there's also shvur. So here, Yosef, by saying Chei Pari, he's continuing the theme of Pari as a god, which is how the parasha begins, by Pari Umin Alayor, as the Medrash says. Pari said, I'm the god of the Yor. And Yosef is loyal to Pari, so therefore he's deifying Pari here. The Shvatim, when they bow to Yosef, the pasuk says as we discussed. Okay, and the pasuk in Yeshaya, Parak test talks about corresponds to our parasha. There it says, one day in Mitzrayim they're going to swear Lashem Tzvokos. At this point in Mitzrayim, swearing by Pari, which is the opposite of swearing by Hashem Tzvokos, because Pari is Omen Hayor, you shouldn't swear by Pari. Okay, so then he swore falsely by Pari. Then it's very appropriate that his chazara is preceded by Elekim Ani Yoreh. Now there's a Pashup Shas, like the Bavram Ben Rambam says. Yosef said like it says, Elekim Ani Yoreh, and therefore I don't want you to starve to death. I realize this is a draconian kind of measure or punishment. Why should only one of you go? You all have to bring food for your families, and why do I care so much? Because it's Elekim Ani Yoreh. But furthermore, since the original plan was supported by the oath by the name of Pari, which is the opposite of Elekim Ani Yoreh, because it's Elim Acherim. So therefore, when Yosef says, look, you know what? That shvur is not binding, because it's Elekim Ani Yoreh. So Neila, shvur by the Zara, doesn't matter. It's a chazar from Chei Pari, right? Okay? Now, I just want to point out, I have to learn up this parak, but I noticed that in Kehelas Parak Ches, there's something connected to this parak. So I'm just going to point out some of the psukim. I mean, in Kehelas Parak Ches, there are many psukim that are according to our parasha. We went through that a lot in the beginning of the parasha. But I just want to point out a few other psukim, which I don't know the mashmos and how to figure this out, so there's not much to do with them. I just want to point out the tzushta. Kehelas Parak Ches, we can begin from the beginning of the parak, where it talks about the Chacham who knows the Pesher, and that's Yosef. He's able to replace the Chalaim. Chacham Asabim To'im Panov is Yosef, who even though he wasn't eating the lechem of Pari, he still was Yefei Torah Yefei Mare. This is another. Yes. Okay. Chacham Asabim To'im Panov, even though Yosef was not eating from the lechem of Pari, still his face was illuminated, like Daniel. Like Daniel's face was illuminated and Daniel became a place of Chalamis. And then Pasuk Beis says, it's a very cryptic Pasuk, Pasuk Beis, Ani pi melech shemar, which is sort of untranslatable, but it means I, the mouth of the king, watch. Watch, as in the parak, watch. V'al divras shvuas Elekim. So there's something about keeping the command of the king, and then the shvuas Elekim, okay? And then, so there's something about the king and the shvuah of God, the correct shvuah. Right? And then we spoke about a lot of these psukim, so I don't want to review that. But if you remember, we spoke about Pasuk Ches, about the Ruach. Yosef is the Ruach Kodim. Okay, we spoke about Pasuk Yud in the end of Parashas Vayeshev. The Rishon Kavur Mavo is the Samashkim. Okay, but there it says in Pasuk Yud Beis that Yedea Ani Asher Yir Tov L'Yireh Elikim Asher Yir L'Lefanov. So there it says that the one who talks about the shvuah of God, talks about the word of the king, and it talks about the Muslim to Yosef, and there it says that if you're Yoreh Elikim, then bad things will happen. Okay, so we have to darshan it better to see how it sheds light, how exactly it sheds light on our parasha. I don't know what to make of it. I just noticed the parallels. Okay, so Yosef tells him like this. So let's think about this. Let's talk about this in Pshat. Yosef told him, as we mentioned, Yosef told him to send one, and then he locks them up for 3 days, and nothing happened. So what happened? What happened? Why did they send someone to retrieve Binyamin? So Chayil Pshat is, and many of the Farshim say this, that they knew that Yaakov wasn't going to send Binyamin, because what happened? Even after he told them that you all go and then you'll bring back Binyamin and free Shimon, they didn't. Why? Because Yaakov wasn't going to let. It was only after they were really hard pressed for food that they eventually were able to bring Binyamin. So that means they knew that it's not happening. We're not going to send someone to bring Binyamin. So for 3 days he sat in jail saying there's nothing to talk about.
Isn't there some chazal that Naphtali went? So like that? They sent Naphtali.
And what happened then? I didn't see.
You knew not to know?
No. I didn't look.
Went.
I mean, not it's not in my job, but maybe I did look.
Yeah, the Naphtali. They sent Naphtali, and Naphtali and Yaakov didn't allow to.
Okay, very good.
Whatever,
Oh, it's the same idea.
He
It gets it.
back, no.
Very good. You mean so it was no. It was a no. Very good. Okay, good. But we have to figure out like this. It means there's really two things happening in this parasha. One is that he offered them shulchan mikem echa v'ikach sachechem, and that was a no-go. And another thing that happens is that he comes back and says Elekim ani yarei, and therefore I'm changing the rules. So how do those two things go together, right? That's something to think about. Okay, fine. The shlosh yom we mentioned already. The shlosh yom we mentioned is that just as Yosef on the third day was released from his captivity, or he wanted to be released, so too they were released on the third day. Okay. Right. Okay, now here's something. Here's a very important pasuk. Okay, maybe not just say that, but anyways. As Elekim ani yarei, Yosef announces that he is Elekim. Something that some of you have heard before is that the last parak in Mishlei, Eishes Chayil corresponds to Sefer Beraishis, and it's Nifla. Some of the parallels are Nifla. I'll take you through some of them, but it's amazing. Can't say all of them. Meaning, it starts with the beginning of Beraishis, and it brings us to the end of Sefer Beraishis, mostly about the women, but actually also about other people. So, Eishes Chayil miyimtza, I'll just tell you some of the psukim. L'adam le'motza eze kenegdoi. Well, last week, Toiv V'loira is because originally it was Eitzadas Tevera. Kol Yemei Chayeha is connected to Kol Yemei Chayeha to Adam and Kol Yemei Chayeha. Darsha Tzemor Pishtin is Kain and Hevel. Hoisik V'niyah Seicha is Noyach. Kakam V'ayla Tikkun Teref is V'hile is Erev. V'yoshav Hayoyna Ilav Le'is Erev V'hine Alizai Strat V'fiyah is Toshav Torah. Zomos V'hilum Bev Metakarn is V'yachal Lechish Adam Yita Kerem. And Kappa Pras Leoni is the beginning of Vayera, where they take care of the Urchim. The Siyur Levesik Mishalik Levesik Lavashanim is Sarah who's not afraid to be light and old. And she Edna. She gets the Shanim, the red. And then the Rosh Hashanah is also Batislak the Amachar is Sarah dying due to the Besur of Yitzchak. Pia Pasa L'chachma L'seres Chesed L'Ashai, there's Rivka, who speaks of Chachma and does Chesed. Tzefia Alicha is based on Lechem Atzasecha. She watches what's happening with Yaakov and Esav, and she's not misatzel, and she hurries and supplies Lechem. Even though he didn't ask for Lechem. Kamu v'neva Yeshua Ba'alai Halalo.
Who delayed the Lechem?
Lechem Atzos, because Sarah didn't bring the Lechem, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Rivka brought the Lechem, right? And then Kamu v'neva Yeshua Ba'alai Halalo, it's everyone wants to do what Rivka suggests. Rivka says, Katki b'chayai, Yaakov marries, and Esav marries, and Yitzchak's like, yeah, it's a good idea, it's in Yaakov. Rabbis Mosaz Uchayil is Rachel Leah, Bilhah and Zilpah. At Olis al Kulana, remember who Olis is? The name, there's a Medrash Sefer Yosh, I think it is. The name of Bathshua was Olis, or Elite. I don't know how you pronounce it. Say, I guess Elite. That's what Olis al Kulana.
Okay. Why would that be the case?
Why what?
Why she's more than anyone else.
I don't know. It's actually the magic. I don't know. It was alles. So this is more than there. Then that might be the marker, but
Could be, but how is
why? It's very special. What do you mean the Mashiach comes from there?
No.
Not Bashua.
Right.
Right. I think this is Bashua was alles, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, and then okay, now up to Yosef. Sheker Achin v'Heval Yofi. Yosef is the one that is Yefei Torah Yefei Mara, right? And Chen, and that's Sheker and Hevel, and he's the Yiras Hashem. Okay, so just so what does that mean? What does it mean? I figure out what it means. Very, very important. It means that Berash is very, very busy with woman. Chal Torah is very busy, of course. It's everything goes wrong because of the yachas between man and woman, and also means that Yosef somehow is the solution. Yosef in his what's the word for it? No, I'm looking for a Greek word. That means what? Not androgynous. What?
No,
the other word. Hermaphroditness.
no.
No, Yosef and his having characteristics of a female.
All right, so it's still not a man. Okay.
Okay, whatever.
Not technically a man.
Yeah, I know. Say that, but the point is Yosef and having these characteristics of female is the only man that's called Yefei Torah Mimara, as I think the Benazir points out. He says like his mother. What?
Says he himself.
Yeah, and he's transpassing like the king till Bashan of Bnei Hamelech from Elam. It says in Shmuel. Other books says passing was Tamar significantly, but she was a king till Bashan of Bnei Hamelech from Elam. So Yosef is this female character. I think there's like Midrashim was there about it. You know, he switched to Dina. Where does it go? Something like that. He had a female. Something with Dina. Right? That makes sense.
That she was switched. She was
supposed to be sure.
He was supposed to be born then. He was
supposed to be born to Leah, and she was supposed to be born to...
Right. So therefore he had a...
I have read this. He had Neshama...
It says something like that, I think something.
She had a male Neshama?
With Yitzhak I heard this.
Did had a male Neshama?
With Yitzhak I heard this. Never heard this with Yitzhak I heard this.
And he had a female Neshama?
He had a female Neshama and then it was Malchus by the Akedah. That's why he wasn't able to...
Okay, I'll try to find the mark of this, okay?
What?
But anyway, the point is that Yosef stands for this kind of solution, let's call it, to the problem of the Isha that Sefer Berash is very busy with. And Sefer Berash ends with Yosef. And so, okay, so Sheker Achem V'Heval Yofi Isha Shemitas Halal. So I'm just reading that, and just my point is Linenu was reading that into this pasuk. Just first of all, I have to mention it, because after that pasuk, it's Elkim Adi Yoreh. This is the pasuk that's Mechum to that. And in this pasuk, this Sheker and Hevel, because Chei Parei, he lied, and that doesn't count. Rather, it's Elkim Adi Yoreh. And therefore what? Therefore, I'm going to let you go home and take care of your family, which is Tunulonu Priyadeha, like he's giving out food. He's allowing them to have food.
So worse, he almost got killed because of the Sheker Chen. He was brought into Potiphar because of his Chen, and then Eshes Potiphar wanted him because of his Chen, and she spread Sheker about him, which almost got him killed, which got him into the pit.
That's right. We spoke
which
about
turned him into milk.
The Sheker and Hevel.
That's what was Mamachim.
Right, in that story we see that too. That
what's Yosef Shmer?
He was Yosef Chen, he was Motzei Chen, and you would think that works, but it ends up
He said he doesn't want to do the Avegas of the year. He's right.
Right.
No, it's Chutasilik. It doesn't say.
No,
here's where it says. No, here it says Chutasilik. But here's where it says that he fears God.
And then when he was brought to Pari, then he said Elkim Yal Shlim Pari.
Right.
That was all his Mamachim. Or that was part of the...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Okay, yeah, there's a question about... Right, it doesn't say anything about the Chen.
The Chen is what got him into the jail in the first place.
Right.
Which got
him Right. No, he had to move past. His Chen and Yofi only got him so far. In fact, it ended up being... betraying.
Yes, Hashem would have enabled him to say to not try to invest in Sarmaskin.
Right.
Well, I mean, there are times.
Okay. Yeah, perhaps, yeah. But this is a major turning point. It's a major turning point. You have to understand this is a major turning point.
Maybe that's what you were saying before. You said after the third day, he said, that he thought that he was getting on the third day because of his lack of Yerushalayim.
He thought, very good.
He's saying, Pakar. You're getting out because of my Yerushalayim.
Very good, excellent. He thought he was getting better on the third day, which is the Yemul as his power. And remember, we spoke about this then. The first, okay, I know we don't like to talk about Makavidik, but it's the easiest way to say it. The first Nidnun of Avodah, let's say, that Yosef had was that he was over in the first mission in Satzat Avodah, which is the Fnei Deim Shalakim Shloisha Yom, nice anymore. And which Yom Ginus Shemalach was the first. I think it's the first on the list. Is the king's birthday is So, which is 2 years later, it's who then says Parai, right? This is his birthday again, and he's a god, and the birthday of the king is the Dugma, is a paradigmatic Yemidayan. So 3 days before the Hudas Parai, Yosef should not be handling with the Sam Mashkin side, but he does. So even the very fact that he's busy with them is already he's mishtayach to the Avodah Zarah of Mitzrayim. So what was the point where you were saying? You were just saying that you're talking about check. Right. So the Kimani Yare corresponds to Chei Parai, right? 3 days earlier he said Chei Parai, which is continuing his association with Parai as a god. And now he says, you know what? We're doing this differently. Last time I waited 3 days for Chei Parai, it ended up with Vayish Kechei, right? Yeah. It ended up with Vayish Kechei. Now we're going to do it right. We're going to do a Kimani Yare. We're not going to focus on Chei Parai, and then you're going to see, and like I said, this is a major turning point. He says, now everything becomes, things start becoming positive at least, then it takes some steps back. But once we spoke about this, I have to say something else which I was going to skip, but once we spoke about so much about this, that we noted that Yosef over here, where he talks about fearing God as opposed to Chei Parai, this is bringing us back to Yosef's original relying on the Mitzrim, and is trying to get out of jail that way, which ends with Vayish Kechei, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to point out something we spoke about in the past, but now that this passage is kind of to review it again. This Anochi Hashem Elokecha, here we spoke about, the question is, can you leave Mitzrayim or not? Yosef told them, you're not leaving Mitzrayim. You're not leaving. You're not having Yitzis Mitzrayim until whatever. In the Lamatzeh, like it's also it says, Yosef comes out of Mitzrayim, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Amal from Mitzrayim, Hachik Bichav Amalei. And there it says, so it means you want food, don't go to Mitzrayim for food. Here they are being mishtachah el nechor, they're being mishtachah to Yosef, who's misnaker to him and making himself like a mitzvah and identifying with Parai. And really, why? Because they need food. So, why do you need food? Where's food? Mitzrayim. And Hashem says, Hashem will fill up our mouth. And without reviewing all the pshatim, with more things happening there, what the pasuk is saying, he fed him the Masani Hashem. Yosef fed the Masani Hashem, which is Parai, who says, Mi Hashem, lo yadati es Hashem, he's Mechach Hashem lo. And he feeds him. And really, Hashem will be Masbiah us, Mitzur Devash. So don't feed the Masani Hashem, who are Mechachish. Because Hashem will give us. Where is Hashem going to get food from not from Mitzrayim? No, Hashem will get food from the Tzur. Hashem doesn't need to get food from the Tzur. Okay, so there we have the issue of where the soiva is going to come from. It's not going to come from Mitzrayim, and we have the Mekach Hashem B'Hashem. Okay, remember that. And in Hosea, Perek Yud Gimel, which we also spoke about this a lot. Perek Gimel in Hosea, Perek Gimel pasuk Dalet, where it says, "Anochi Hashem Elokecha me'eretz Mitzrayim." So there too, there's this idea that Hashem could take us out of Mitzrayim. Hashem takes us out of Mitzrayim, and there it says, "Two psukim later, Kimar Isam vayizba'u savu vayaram liba b'kein shchechuni." When you have soiva, you forget Hashem. So it means when the soiva comes in a natural way, like from Mitzrayim, that leads to shikha. Okay, so we have in Hosea the danger of shikchas Hashem. It comes with the soiva, and the same thing we have in Anochi Hashem Elokecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. The same thing we have in Tehillim, Anochi Hashem Elokecha ma'ach me'eretz Mitzrayim, and we have the kachash, not the shikha but the kachash, which are very related, with the same letters and the same idea. You forget things, or you deny things, or you're in choshech, or you can be darkness, also the same idea. I mean, all associated. And there it says where the soiva is going to come from. It says in Tehillim the soiva comes from, not from Mitzrayim. Right, the soiva comes from Mitzrayim. Fine. So that all brings us back to Vayishkochehu. That when you're relying on the wealth or the power of Mitzrayim, so that leads to Shikha, and it leads to Kachash, and it leads to Choshech, which is why the Medrash says, "Ahim Yiketz Rosayim Yamim." The Medrash goes to this whole thing, Kate Sam LaChoshech. The whole Medrash about that. Pasuk in Eve. Because Vayishkochehu, Zoysi is Choshech, Zoysi is Kachash, and Yosef by doing it the Chei Parai way, which is saying, I I'm into Mitzrayim, I'm going to manipulate Mitzrayim, I'm going to work with Mitzrayim instead of trying to get out of here, he is allowing for this mahalach that the soiva of Mitzrayim is going to lead to the kachash and shikha. Okay, so then, right, as you said, here he's telling the Shvatim, 3 days later we're going to do it right.
The Shvatim thought that he was really swearing in Parai because he was serious. Yosef,
Right.
you said, knew all along that this is a sheker. So was he doing an Avera also by being Malach Mitzrayim, or he was doing this also to burn? By being Malach Mitzrayim. He knew that this is a sheker, Chei Pari, he was being Mashpil a sheker, and
Right.
this was going to fall apart. Was he doing an Avera, or they were
At
doing
what
an
point? When he swore?
Right, meaning they were doing an Avera when they were being, what's it called again?
They would be mad with him.
Right, they were being Mechabed and they were being Maimin him. Was he doing an Avera, or he knew this is all a joke, but he thinks that the...
Yosef's affairs are all jokes. That's the answer. That's the
And
answer.
there, their father says, go down to Mitzrayim.
He knows everything's a joke.
Luke tells him, go to Mitzrayim, get food.
How can Yosef go down to Mitzrayim and start doing all this thing? Because he's a good joker. That's the whole point.
And
He's not about some
what about Yaakov?
That's it. No, meaning that Yosef knew. Yosef knows that God is going to do also.
I mean, they're telling truth.
They knew that too. Everyone
Right.
For him, this is always a hechetem to be Malam Eretz Mitzrayim and
Yes. But
Shall
that
back to
Yosef, right? Yosef
they did
believed.
Avera because they believed Yosef was serious and they went along with it. But
Yeah, but
Yosef,
it goes much deeper than that. Yosef is the one. Yosef engages with God. What that means is, on a certain level, it means that Yosef can do that l'shem shemayim, and they can't. So for them, it's not fair. For him, it's not. He can go into Hester Midas and somehow come out at tzaddik.
right. I mean, that's how much a pasuk in Kehelsi quoted. That what's it called? That he swore b'chei pari, which is exactly what it says.
Libi melech shemayim.
Right, it says the Tevel Yel Russia. The his swearing b'chei pari Yeshul Sheker is good for killing pari.
Yeah.
That's the Tevel Yel Russia Yarchem.
Yeah.
And it says
Right.
Yeah, he says I'm the Yar. He says Yarchem. He says I'm the Yar Milfnei Elkim. So Mila.
Very good. I think you're saying also that
Mamash brought us straight into the pasuk.
Yeah,
But this is good for killing him.
Right.
Right, he's swearing Chei Pari Yeshul Sheker, which is right. It's going to kill him. And then the retraction on that is Yar Milfnei Elkim. They says that's like him and Yari.
And they're doing what? They're not saying anything.
Because they have to they being people who are not engaged or cannot engage with Mitzrayim.
I mean, they went down to Pari.
Should be objecting. They should be objecting.
But his engagement with Mitzrayim is a way of killing them. They don't realize that, so they're doing.
We spoke about this at some
This
point,
is
right?
not
Yeah, he's the
true.
Ruach HaKodim, which
Right.
ends up being
Which is taking
destroying
them over, right? Covering them.
But the question is how that happens. Okay,
Right.
We have to think
Right.
about that again. Okay, so let's go now. Let's read what the changes over here. So Bayem HaShlishi he tells them Zois Asu V'chyu. So everything's changing now. Before he said, now he's telling them V'chyu, V'lo Samusu. The whole tone changes. Before he didn't say you're going to live. He said, let's see. Right? It's not just he changed the terms. He also changed the whole tone. Before he said, let's see ha'emes itchem. Now he says, you're going to live. You're not going to die. V'ya'onu devrechem. So it's not just that he's changing the rules. He also said it's shifting. Once he introduces Yosef Lakim, that leads to Chayim. The whole change from Chei Paroi, Kimaraglamata. Now when he's talking Yosef Lakim, he's only talking truth, and they're not really Meraglim. And he's like, okay, let's play this game. But it's a one-sided thing, right? It's a one-sided thing now. He doesn't say V'nira ha'emes itchem as he said before, because he's no longer engaging with false. Okay. So now what we have to think about is like this, and let's just perhaps this week we could just introduce this. Maybe we have to figure it out better. So there's really you have to read this parsha. You have to understand there's two panim, as it were. There's two completely different panim that Yosef is putting forth. One panim we could call the Chei Pari aspect of Yosef, which has its own mahalach, and in that mahalach they all have to be locked up, and one could go and get his brother. And then there's the other panim, which is a Lakim and Yare, and has a whole different set of rules, right? So it's very interesting because the same thing we have at the end of Parshas Miketz. This idea that there's two tracks, because in the end of Parshas Miketz, there's one track. The first suggestion is whoever you find the Gevia with will die, and there will be avodim. And Yosef says whoever finds the Gevia is going to be my Eved at Avodah L'Shalom. So very very similar. Very similar that we have this like, okay, do we all have to stay? One of you stay, right? And that there's two different possibilities. So I want to
They're
just
speaking like their father. They're saying whoever has the Trafim will die.
right. So here's the thing. So now, what happens at the end of the parasha, the end of Miketz, is that they frame Binyamin gets framed as someone who stole the Gavia with which Yosef is Menachesh, and as the Medrash says, the brother said to Binyamin, "You're the Ganet, the son of a Ganet. Your mother stole the Trafim, which is also a means of Nichosh, and you steal the Gavia, and it's all happening again." Now, what's happening again? We're clear whoever has the Gavia will die, which is what killed off Rachel. And now you're going to die for the same reason. And Yosef says, no. Whoever has the Gavia is going to be there. So what he's doing over here, as we spoke about this in the past, what he's doing over here is he's being masakin the big problem with him. The big problem with Yosef is Rachel. In other words, he continues Rachel's chesroidus, you could say. Dying like this. Push. Yaakov said, which means Yaakov was certain no one stole them. Rachel did steal them. So the machlekes Yaakov and Rachel whether you should steal the trafim or not. And Yaakov didn't even know that Rachel held that she stole the trafim. So that means why is Yaakov not steal the trafim? The Yaakov the trafim is nothing. It's commodity and it's not even worth. There's no having to steal it. And Rachel is a machshav the trafim. Whether she stole it because she wanted it, or whether she stole it so that Lavan shouldn't be menachesh with it, either way, she is giving it some chashivus. Okay, and Yaakov says, and therefore she dies. And if she dies, then maybe her children are not really worthy of being in Yaakov, because maybe she was married to one of them, something wrong with her, and she's the one who dies before he goes to Eretz Yisrael, so on and so forth. And what Yosef is doing is he's fixing this death. He's saying it's not death, it's avdus. In other words, whatever the problem is with Rachel, which I have the same problem too, doesn't mean I should die. My mother shouldn't have died, and I shouldn't have died. And guess what? I didn't die. When you tried to kill me, I actually became an evet, and that's misakin. Whatever things we have to work out, this side of the family gets worked out through avdus, not through misa. Okay.
I'm talking to mamzer.
What?
That's him talking to mamzer.
On the other hand, he's wrong.
Darfur, what shaykhs?
On the other hand, he's wrong.
What shaykhs? You heard mamzer the sakin?
No, I'm saying that the Taina was mamzer because it was shtei achim.
Okay.
Shtei achim are married to Yaakov, so they're not legitimate zera.
Okay.
What's him talking to mamzer? Turn them into an Evan, a male.
Okay, fine.
No, they could be in
So
the
it
close
turns
life
out
out.
they were right, and he was wrong. Because it turns out that they were right and he was wrong.
Who was right?
The Bnei Leah were right and Yosef was wrong, because
For what?
even though in himself there was no problem, he didn't actually actively he managed to sidestep the problems.
Right.
But it came out in his descendants and Binyamin's, and which is why Shmuel, who was from Bnei Leah, says Chatas Kesem Meri.
We have to wait and see how the story ends. We still didn't have the end of the story yet. We need Leonard and Mashiach to come and write the end of the story. We'll have the whole shtick put it all together.
It wasn't finished, but
it's not
it's
prejudged.
still not over.
Right.
He thinks it's over. It's not over.
Who thinks it's over?
Yosef thinks it's over.
When?
Here. He says,
Oh yeah, here he does. Right. Yeah, but say it right. Here
They
he
said
said
no. Someone's
Yeah,
gonna.
I'm saying it. You guys should love Yehuda. We'll get to it again. Fine. But anyways, I was trying to finish this up. The Megillah in Nigel. Now. So what we pointed out was like this: that in this story, there's two aspects. There's two mahalchim, and here's one called Keipar. Here's another one called Kibbutz Yorek. And at the end of the parasha, also we have Yosef doing something differently than he might have done. Okay, now one more zushtel to this, and just put it all together. At the end of the sefer, they come to Yosef and they bow to him and say, "Forgive us." They bow to him and they beg for forgiveness. And they said, and they pledged to be his avodah. And Yosef told him, "Al tirok yasachas alehim ani." Don't fear, because I am not in the place of God. Rather, it all comes from Elekim, and I'm going to support you. Okay, so don't be afraid, because I am not the Mokum Elekim. What he's saying, what that suggests is that one should only be afraid of Elekim, and I'm not Elekim, right? So reading it that way, I think it follows from our pasuk. Yosef says Elekim and Yoreh. What's the other tzad? Who's not Yoreh from Elekim? Someone who's Tachas Elekim, like Paroi. Chei Paroi is a steer to Elekim and Yoreh, because he himself is a god. He's a fear of Elekim. So when Yosef says Asachas Elekim ani, it means I'm not a god. Deloy Kishitas, let's say Par.
Meaning he's giving the Musar.
Huh?
Meaning he's giving the Musar for having feared him in the first place.
Well, okay.
That was the anthem.
No, because you know who else? No, it's not Musar. Rachel thought the Yaakov was Tachas Elikim. It's not so bad, half a meter. Right? Vayicha Yaakov, Rachel, Vayim Tachas Elikim, Rachel thought he was Tachas Elikim. Now, so that means Tachas Elikim means something. You have to think what it means. But it means something, me'ain, that is a little bit of a hafkah to Yosef Elikim, at least. A little bit of hafkah. So Rachel, who stole the Trachim, she thinks that the person who's Tachas Elikim. That's the state. And Yosef is telling them, no, I'm not Tachas Elikim. Meaning, I hold up my father. Mm-hmm. This problem that Rachel had is getting worked out. And the problem that Rachel had led to her to die. And Yosef is here saying, you know what, I changed my mind. We're not dying today. So here he's and at the end of the story, the same parallel happens. End of the parasha, he says he's not dying for stealing the computer, he's going to be in heaven.
Because he was in heaven, he fixed it.
Right.
I fixed it, but I learned that I'm not Tachas Elikim.
Yeah, something like that. He learned that he's not Tachas Elikim, and he holds like his father. Don't worry. Rachel had this problem. The answer is obvious.
I mean, the obvious is Matakin that reintegrated them into Klal Yisrael. So Yosef had the biggest agenda to start the goals, to go through the obvious, which then they came out, which they were getting Chanel, and then they Yosef and Rachel came back into Klal Yisrael.
Something like that, right? You have to think about that. Yes, so that's the thing. So Rachel thinks that Yaakov is Tachas Elikim, like the pasuk says in what is it, Levachim, right? It's God's role is to kill and to bring to life. So Rachel thinks that Yaakov could do that, which is, by the way, not such a crazy Halloween, because Yaakov is Chakuka Tachas Kisei HaKavod, which also means that Yosef is, because the Bus Yosef is Yaakov. So it's a good Halloween. He's literally Tachas Elikim. He's under the Kisei HaKavod, right? No, actually someone says that. We said that then. He is Tachas Elikim. He said, no, I'm not Tachas Elikim. But he really is. So it's not a crazy Halloween. I mean, this is all we're thinking what it really means. But these Elikim Haniyare is saying, you know, I'm not really Tachas Elikim.
Tachas under, not in place of, okay.
You say that, okay. Tachas Ragel, I'm showing you. Tachas. I would make example show Tachas. Tachas Kursi Yikare. Tachas Ragel is Tachas Kursi Yikare. Okay, but that's, so I just want to review this last point, because I'm the reason I'm not being master what it means, because I don't know exactly what it means, but I just see the parallel. In our story, again, the parallel's like this. In our story, there's two parts to Yosef. One is all of them being locked up, and the other one is Chaim, and only one of them being locked up. At the end of the parasha, the same thing. One dies, and they're all about him, and Yosef is like, no one's dying, only one Eved, so that seems to go together. That story is about what to do with the person who steals the Nichush things, which brings us back to the story of what to do with Rachel who stole the Trachim. Her death is what casts some aspersion on Yosef as being the true heir to Yaakov. And Yosef is fixing that and saying, no one's supposed to die then, my mother wasn't supposed to die, someone steals Trachim, bad idea, she shouldn't die, she should have been an Eved, like I was. So meaning by me becoming an Eved, I'm fixing the problem, this kilkul, and the kilkul was the Trachim, and the kilkul is also, I submit, that she said, that she thought Yaakov was Tachas Elikim, and when Yosef says, I am not Tachas Elikim, so I'm not going to kill you, S10, like he said over here, and therefore I'm going to take care of you, give you food. He said, Yosef is recognizing he's Yosef Kim, and therefore he's the good Isha, as it were, not the one, and not the one of Misa, but of Chaim. Okay, go ahead.
What's really interesting is that Yehuda